The morning sun rose over New Busan like it did every other day. The field stretched out in neat rows full of green plants swaying in the gentle wind. Children laughed as they ran between the houses. Old men sat on porches drinking tea and watching the day begin. To anyone watching, it looked like a simple farming town. Nothing special. Nothing dangerous. Governor Tae-sung stood at his office window, looking out at the peaceful scene. He was 53 years old, with gray hair starting to show at his temples. His hands were rough from years of work and his eyes carried the weight of memories he tried to forget. He held a cup of coffee and watched a group of kids play soccer in the dirt road. Behind him, the office door opened. Dr. Jiwoo walked in without knocking. She never knocked. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and quick movements. Her white medical coat was spotless, as always. "The drones are back," she said quietly. Tae-sung didn't turn around. "How many this time?" "3. Same pattern as before. High orbit scanning everything." "They're counting our guns," Tae-sung said with a small smile. "Or rather, counting the guns they can see." Jiwoo moved to stand beside him at the window. Together, they watched a farmer drive his tractor across a field. The machine looked old and slow, covered in dirt and rust. "Does he know yet?" Jiwoo asked. "I'll tell everyone this afternoon. No point in worrying them before we're sure." They stood in silence for a moment. Outside life continued like normal. The bakery opened. People walked to work. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. "How long do we have?" Jiwoo finally asked. 3 days. Maybe 4. And Earth? "Earth says good luck." Tae-sung's voice was flat. "They can't get ships here in time. We're on our own." Jiwoo nodded slowly. She had expected that answer. New Busan was 47 light-years from Earth. Help was not coming. It never did for the frontier colonies. "I should check the medical supplies," she said. "Make sure everything is ready." Jiwoo. Tae-sung turned to face her. "You didn't have to come here. You could have stayed on Earth. Comfortable hospital, safe city. Why did you choose this?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You know why? Same reason you're here. Same reason all of us are here." Tae-sung nodded. He did know. They all knew. Later that morning, Hyun-woo arrived at the governor's office. He was the head of colonial security, though that title meant less than it sounded. He was only 29, but he moved like someone much older. His uniform was simple, without any fancy decorations. "The perimeter sensors picked up the scanning pattern," Hyun-woo said. "They're doing a full tactical assessment." "Let them look," Tae-sung replied. "They'll see exactly what we want them to see." Hyun-woo pulled out a datapad and showed Tae-sung the scan results. 8,000 colonists. No military ships in orbit. No visible weapon platforms. Only basic security forces. "Aging infrastructure." "Perfect," Tae-sung said. "We look weak." "Because we are weak," Hyun-woo said. "On paper. On paper." Tae-sung agreed. Engineer Hae-won was the next to arrive. She was a stocky woman in her 40s, always covered in grease and carrying tools. She dropped into a chair without waiting for an invitation. "The grid is ready," she announced. "I tested all the systems last night." "Everything runs smooth. Any problems?" Tae-sung asked. "Reactor 3 made a weird noise, but I fixed it. Oh, and the Northfield emitters needed calibration." "Done now." "The irrigation controls?" Hae-won grinned. "Irrigation controls are working perfectly, Governor. Every single sprinkler system is operational." The 3 of them shared a look. Anyone listening would think they were talking about farm equipment. In a way, they were. That afternoon, Tae-sung called a town meeting. The entire colony gathered in the main square. Families stood together. Old people sat on benches. Young children played at their parents' feet, not understanding the serious faces around them. Tae-sung stood on the platform and looked at his people. 8,000 souls. His responsibility. "I won't waste your time with pretty words," he began. "You all know what those drones mean. The Vreks have been watching us for 2 weeks. They've made their decision. They're coming." A murmur went through the crowd, but no one looked surprised. These people had lived through war before. They knew the signs. "Earth can't help us," Tae-sung continued. "We're too far away. By the time any ship could reach us, this will be over, one way or another." An old man in the front row spoke up. "So we run?" "No," Tae-sung said firmly. "We don't run. We never run." "Then we fight," someone else said. "We fight," Tae-sung confirmed. "Like we always knew we might have to." He paused, letting his words sink in. Then he smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a wolf showing its teeth. Activate Protocol 7. All of you know what that means. All of you know what to do. The crowd began to move with purpose. There was no panic. No screaming. These were not ordinary farmers who had never seen battle. These were veterans. Every single adult in New Busan had served in Earth's military. They had fought in the Proxima War. They had seen friends die. They had killed enemies with their own hands. And then they had retired to this quiet colony hoping for peace. But they had never forgotten. They had never stopped preparing. As the people dispersed to their tasks, Jiwoo found Taesung again. "Do you think they know?" she asked. "Do the Vrex have any idea what they're walking into?" Taesung watched his colonists move with military precision, despite their farmers' clothes and civilian appearances. "No," he said. "They see an easy target. A weak colony, defenseless people." "Good," Jiwoo said coldly. "Let them think that." Right up until the end. That night, everything looked the same in New Busan. Lights glowed in windows. Families ate dinner together. The night shift workers headed to their jobs. Music played from somewhere, but beneath the surface everything had changed. In the barns, weapons came out of hidden storage. In the fields, machinery hummed with new purpose. In the basements, command centers activated. And in the sky above, invisible to the naked eye, systems came online that no farming colony should possess. Taesung stood alone on his porch, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vrex fleet was coming. They thought they would find easy prey. They were wrong. He remembered something his old commander had once told him, back during the war. "Humans are dangerous not because we're the strongest. We're dangerous because we prepare for everything. We learn from every mistake, and we never ever forget." Taesung went inside and began writing a message. He would send it tomorrow to the Vrex fleet. A final warning. He doubted they would listen. Predators never did when they thought they had found weak prey, but that was their mistake. Their last mistake. The countdown had begun. The Vrex fleet emerged from hyperspace like sharks smelling blood. 12 warships, each one massive and bristling with weapons. Their hulls were dark red, the color of dried blood marked with the symbols of conquered worlds. For the Vrex Empire, this was a routine operation. Small colony, weak defenses, easy prey. Commander Volk stood on the bridge of the flagship, his 4 eyes fixed on the planet below. New Busan looked peaceful from orbit, green and blue with small settlements scattered across one continent. His sensors showed exactly what he expected to see. "Report," he commanded. His tactical officer checked the screens. 8,000 life signs. No orbital weapons platforms. No military vessels. Their communication systems are basic civilian grade. Power output suggests basic colony infrastructure only. Volk's mandibles clicked together in satisfaction. "Any response to our arrival?" "None, Commander." "They appear to be continuing normal activities." "Fear," Volk decided. "They are frozen with fear. Prepare the landing force. We'll take the main settlement first. Kill the leaders and the rest will surrender." On the surface, things were indeed continuing normally. But normal for New Busan had changed. Commander Jinho sat in what used to be a grain storage building. Now the walls had pulled back to reveal screens and control systems. He was a tall man with steady hands and a calm voice. The kind of commander who never raised his tone even during crisis. "Fleet count confirmed," he said. 12 ships. Vrex-class battlecruisers. They're holding high orbit. Around him, 30 people worked at various stations. All of them wore civilian clothes. All of them moved with military precision. Myran, the communications officer, looked up from her console. She was young, barely 25, with quick fingers and quicker thinking. "They're preparing a broadcast, Commander. Putting it through now." The screens flickered and Commander Volk's face appeared. It was an ugly face by human standards, with too many eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. "Humans of New Busan," Volk began, his voice translated by computer. "You have 10 minutes to surrender. Gather in the main square with your hands visible. Anyone who resists will be eliminated. Anyone who runs will be hunted. You have no choice. Accept your fate with dignity, and perhaps we will let some of you live as slaves." The message ended. Jinho looked around the command center. No one spoke. No one looked worried. "Well," he said mildly. "That was rude." A few people smiled. Miran cracked her knuckles. "Should I jam their communications?" she asked. "Not yet. Let them think everything is working. No need to make them suspicious. Young Sik walked into the command center, still wearing his farming overalls. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 40s, with soil under his fingernails and a face weathered by sun and wind. He looked like he had spent his whole life behind a plow. He had actually spent 15 years in Earth's Special Operations Forces. "The silos are ready," he reported. "All doors are clear. Targeting systems are locked." "Good," Jinho said. "How many missiles?" 342. Various types. "Should be enough. Should be plenty," Jinho agreed. In the medical center, Dr. Jiwoo was preparing. She had sent all the children to the bunkers an hour ago, along with the few colonists who were too old or sick to fight. Now she stood in front of a large cabinet marked "Medical Supplies Authorized Personnel Only." She opened it. Inside were not bandages and medicine, but weapons. Lots of weapons. She had been a bioweapons specialist for Earth's military. She knew 17 different ways to kill with chemicals that left no trace. She knew how to design viruses that targeted specific. She knew things that gave her nightmares, and we had retired to New Busan hoping never to use that knowledge again. But hope and reality were different. She picked up a rifle, checked it automatically, and slung it over her shoulder. Then she picked up a medical kit. She would need both today. In the engineering bay, Haiwan worked quickly. Her fingers flew over the controls, activating systems that had been dormant for months. The colony's power grid began to surge. "Come on, baby," she muttered to the machines. "Wake up, time to work." The reactor cores hummed louder. Energy flowed through underground cables to devices hidden all over the colony. Devices that looked like communication towers. Devices that looked like water pumps. Devices that looked like farming equipment. They were none of those things. Haiwan smiled as every system came online green. "Perfect," she said to herself. "Let's see them ignore us now." Governor Taesung walked through the colony one last time. He saw people moving with purpose. Every face was calm, determined. These were his people, and he was proud of them. He stopped at the communications building. Miran looked up as he entered. "Ready to send my message?" he asked. "Ready, Governor. I can put you through to the Vrex flagship directly." "Do it." A moment later, Commander Volk's face appeared on the screen again. He looked surprised to receive a call from the planet. "Human," Volk said. "You wish to surrender?" "Wise choice," Taesung smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "No," he said simply. "I'm calling to give you a warning. You have 7 minutes to leave this system. After that, I cannot guarantee your safety." Volk stared for a moment. Then he began to laugh. It was a harsh barking sound. "You threaten me? You have nothing. No weapons. No defenses. You are farmers and shopkeepers." "We were farmers and shopkeepers," Taesung corrected. "Last week? But you've made us something else." "And what is that?" "Soldiers," Taesung said. Again, Volk's laughter grew louder. "Soldiers. You think you can fight the Vrex Empire? We have crushed 100 worlds. What can you do with your tractors and your gardens?" Taesung leaned forward, his eyes cold and hard. "You're about to find out. 7 minutes, Commander. I suggest you use them wisely." He cut the transmission. In the Vrex flagship, Volk stopped laughing. For a moment, something like doubt flickered in his eyes. But pride was stronger than doubt. "Insane humans," he growled. "Launch all landing craft. I want that colony in ruins within the hour." "Kill them all." "All of them, Commander?" his tactical officer asked. "All of them." They had their chance. The Vrex landing craft began to launch. 12 ships becoming 60 smaller vessels, each carrying troops and weapons. They descended toward New Busan like a swarm of angry insects. In the command center, Jinho watched them come. 60 landing craft, he reported calmly. Multiple entry vectors. "They're not even trying to be tactical. Why would they?" Haiwan said over the radio. "They think we're defenseless." Jinho looked at his tactical display. Every weapon system showed green. Every soldier was in position. Everything was ready. "Well," he said, "time to correct that assumption." He opened the colony-wide channel. "This is Commander Jinho. All units weapons free. Show them what Earth's retired soldiers can do." Young Sik stood beside his barn. The roof began to slide open. Inside, pointed at the sky, were missiles. Lots of missiles. He lit a cigarette and watched the landing craft approach. "Come on, then," he muttered. "Let's dance." All over the colony, hidden weapons came online. What looked like water towers were actually railgun platforms. What looked like grain silos were missile launchers. What looked like greenhouses were actually shield generators. The VRX landing craft crossed into the atmosphere, their pilots confident and relaxed. They had exactly 1 minute to live, and they didn't even know it yet. The first minute began with silence. The VRX landing craft streaked through New Busan's atmosphere, their engines roaring. Inside each craft, soldiers checked their weapons and prepared for easy victory. They had done this before on dozens of worlds. Find the civilians. Terrify them. Take control. Simple. On the lead craft, squad leader Thork checked his chronometer. 45 seconds until landing. He looked at his troops, all eager young soldiers who had never tasted defeat. Remember, he told them, fast and brutal. That's how we break their spirit. His soldiers nodded. Their weapons were ready. Their armor was polished. They were VRX warriors and they feared nothing. Then the sky exploded. Young Sik pressed a button on his control panel and his barn became something else entirely. The roof panels flew off. The walls folded down. And rising from the ground like metal flowers, 12 missile launchers armed themselves. Target lock achieved. His computer announced in a pleasant voice, "Fire when ready." "Fire," Young Sik said calmly. The missiles launched with a sound like thunder. White trails of smoke painted lines across the blue sky. Each missile had a target. Each target was a VRX landing craft. The computer systems that controlled the missiles were not simple targeting programs. They were military-grade AI designed for one purpose, to kill efficiently. Thork saw the missile coming for his craft. His pilot tried to evade, but the missile was faster, smarter. It adjusted its trajectory with impossible precision. "Evasive maneuvers," Thork screamed. Too late. The missile struck the landing craft's engine core. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then the craft exploded into a ball of orange fire. Thork and his 20 soldiers ceased to exist. They didn't even have time to be afraid. All across the sky, the same scene repeated. Missiles found their targets. Landing craft exploded. Debris rained down on the fields below. In the command center, Jinho watched the tactical display. Red icons representing VRX craft began disappearing. "First wave impact successful," Miran reported. 15 craft destroyed. 45 remaining, Jinho said. "They're trying to scatter. Activate the point defense grid." What the VRX had thought were simple communication towers now revealed their true purpose. The towers split open, and from inside came weapons that humanity had perfected over centuries of war. Rapid-fire railguns that could track multiple targets simultaneously. The air filled with the sound of railguns firing. It was like a continuous thunderclap, never ending. Projectiles moving at impossible speeds reached out and touched the remaining landing craft. A VRX pilot tried to fly low, hoping to use the terrain for cover. A railgun found him anyway. The projectile went through his craft like paper, and it spiraled down to crash in an empty field. Another pilot tried to climb back into orbit. 3 railguns targeted him at once. His craft came apart in midair, pieces tumbling separately to the ground. 23 more down, Miran said. Her voice was steady, professional. She could have been reading the weather report. 22 craft remaining. They're breaking formation. On the VRX flagship, Commander Volk stared at his screens in disbelief. Half his landing force gone in less than 60 seconds. It was impossible. The intelligence had been clear. This colony was defenseless. Return fire, he ordered. Orbital bombardment. Destroy those weapon platforms. His weapons officer began targeting the surface installations. The massive cannons of the flagship charged, ready to turn those railgun towers into molten slag. Then Heywan flipped another switch, hidden beneath the surface. In bunkers that had been carefully disguised as foundation buildings were point defense systems. Earth military technology, old but reliable. The kind of systems that had protected Earth during the Proxima War. When the orbital cannons fired, the point defense systems activated. Laser batteries intercepted the incoming fire. Most of the orbital strikes were vaporized before they reached the ground. The few that got through hit empty fields, doing nothing more than creating impressive craters. Their orbital bombardment is ineffective, Heywan reported with satisfaction. Shields are holding. Point defense is operating at 97% efficiency. Volk felt something he hadn't felt in many years. Fear. What are these humans? He whispered. The remaining 22 landing craft split up, trying to approach from multiple directions at once. It was good tactical thinking, but it assumed their enemy had limited resources. That assumption was wrong. Dr. Ji Woo had been waiting for this moment. When the landing craft split up and came in low, they entered the range of her surprise. She activated what the colonists called the swarm. From hidden bays all around the colony, small drones launched. Thousands of them, each one no bigger than a dinner plate, equipped with simple AI and even simpler weapons. The Vrex had never seen anything like them. The drones moved like a school of fish, coordinating perfectly. They surrounded the landing craft and attached themselves to the hulls. Inside the craft, pilots felt the impacts but saw nothing on their sensors. These drones were too small to trigger the warning systems. Then the drones activated their cutting tools. Originally designed to harvest crops, the high-powered plasma cutters worked just as well on metal. They began slicing through the hull armor. A Vrex craft began to depressurize. The pilot struggled with his controls as air rushed out through a dozen holes. His craft tilted, spiraled, and crashed into a hillside. Another craft tried to shake off the drones by flying erratically. It didn't work. The drones clung like parasites, cutting deeper. Critical systems began to fail. The craft lost power and dropped from the sky. 14 craft remaining, Miran reported. They're trying to regroup. Don't let them, Jinho ordered. Young-Sik activated his second wave of missiles. More smoke trails painted the sky. More explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. The Vrex survivors were in full panic now. Their formation was broken. Their communications were filled with screaming. Half tried to retreat, half tried to press forward. Discipline had collapsed. Hyunwoo, watching from the security headquarters, shook his head. They're not even fighting anymore. They're just dying. He was right. The remaining Vrex craft were no longer an organized military force. They were just targets. And New Busan had plenty of weapons to spare. 1 minute had become 2. Then 3. The number of surviving craft kept dropping. Governor Tae-sung stood on a balcony watching the battle. Smoke trails crisscrossed the sky. Explosions echoed across the valley, and not one single Vrex soldier had reached the ground alive. He felt Jiwoo come to stand beside him. How many casualties on our side? He asked. None, she replied. Not even injuries. They never got close enough. Tae-sung nodded slowly. That's good. That's very good. You almost sound disappointed. Not disappointed, just remembering. He gestured at the sky. This is what we were. What we had to become. I had hoped we could leave it behind. We did leave it behind, Jiwoo said softly. For years we were just farmers and teachers and doctors. Peaceful people living peaceful lives. Until someone made us remember. Until someone made us remember, she agreed. The tactical display showed 6 Vrex craft remaining. They were fleeing now, trying to escape back to orbit. But Miran had been waiting for this moment. She activated her jamming systems at full power. The electromagnetic interference created a bubble around the planet. The fleeing craft couldn't navigate. Their engines sputtered as their systems struggled against the interference. They're trapped, Miran reported. Sitting ducks. The railguns finished them off. One by one, the last craft fell from the sky, and then it was quiet. The weapons stopped firing. The missiles stopped launching. The drones returned to their hidden bays. The only sound was the wind and the distant crackle of burning wreckage. In the command center, someone started a timer. Time elapsed since first contact, Jinho announced. 3 minutes and 48 seconds. The room was silent for a moment. Then someone laughed. The tension broke and others joined in. Not joyful laughter, but the release of combat stress. 60 landing craft, Hyunwoo said, checking his data. Approximately 1,200 enemy soldiers. All destroyed. And we haven't even used the big guns yet, Haewon added. Jinho looked at the orbital display. The Vrex fleet was still up there. 12 massive warships. And now they knew that New Busan was not what it seemed. He activated the general channel. Good work, everyone. But don't relax yet. The fleet is still here and they're going to be very angry. Phase 2 begins now. Above the planet, Commander Volk stared at his screens in absolute shock. His entire landing force gone in less than 4 minutes, and the humans hadn't even stopped farming. He could see them on his long-range scans, still working in their fields as if nothing had happened. What are these creatures? He whispered again. His tactical officer's voice was shaking. Commander, I recommend immediate retreat. These humans have military-grade weapons systems. This is not a civilian target, but Volk's pride burned hotter than his fear. He had come to conquer. He would not run from farmers no matter what weapons they had. All ships, he commanded, prepare for full orbital assault. We will burn that colony to ash. In the command center, Jin-Ho saw the fleet weapons charging. Here we go, he said. Time to show them what else we have. Minute 4 began with the Vrex fleet's fury. Commander Volk had lost his entire landing force. His pride was wounded, and wounded pride was dangerous. He wanted revenge. He wanted to see that colony burn. All weapons fire at will, he commanded. I want every structure reduced to rubble. Every human vaporized. Nothing survives. The 12 battlecruisers opened fire simultaneously. Massive plasma cannons unleashed hell toward the planet below. Energy weapons that could crack a moon. Missiles that carried enough explosive power to level mountains. The Vrex Empire's full military might focused on one small colony. In the command center, alarms blared. Incoming fire, Miran reported, her voice sharp. Multiple vectors. High-yield plasma and kinetic weapons. Activate full defensive protocol, Jin-Ho ordered. Hey-One, I hope your shields are as good as you claimed. They're better, Hey-One replied over the radio. Her fingers danced across her controls. Watch this. The air above New Busan shimmered. Invisible energy fields came to life, overlapping in layers like scales on a dragon's back. When the first plasma bolts reached them, they simply stopped. The energy dissipated harmlessly against the shields, turning to light and heat that scattered into the atmosphere. Kinetic missiles fared no better. The point defense lasers intercepted most of them. The few that got through exploded against the shields, creating brilliant flashes but doing no damage. Volk watched in disbelief as his devastating barrage accomplished nothing. The colony remained untouched. Even the fields of crops were undamaged. Impossible, he breathed. What kind of shield technology is this? His science officer checked the readings. Commander, these shields are using power levels consistent with military-grade planetary defense systems. This colony has a power output that matches a capital city on the homeworld. But how? They're farmers. The science officer didn't have an answer. No one did. What the Vrex didn't know was that New Busan had been built on top of an old Earth military research station. The reactors buried deep underground could power a small fleet. When the colonists had arrived, they hadn't dismantled the military infrastructure. They had just hidden it, covered it with farms and houses and normal-looking buildings, because humans never forgot the lessons of war. And the most important lesson was, always be prepared. Shields holding at 94%, Hey-Wan reported cheerfully. They're not even scratching us. Want me to show them what real firepower looks like? Not yet, Jin-Ho said. Let them waste their ammunition. Every shot they fire is one less they'll have later. The Vrex fleet continued firing for 2 full minutes. Enough firepower to destroy a city. Enough firepower to burn a continent. And it all splashed harmlessly against New Busan's shields. Finally, Volk called for a ceasefire. His weapons were overheating and he was accomplishing nothing. Status report, he demanded. All weapons operating within normal parameters, but ammunition reserves are down by 30%. The planet's shields show no signs of weakening. Volk's mandibles clicked in frustration. This was wrong. Everything about this situation was wrong. Colonies didn't have this kind of defense. They couldn't afford it. They didn't need it unless they had known, unless they had been waiting. This is a trap, he said suddenly. This entire colony is a trap. Commander, his tactical officer asked. Think about it. Perfect target. Weak defenses. Isolated location. We were supposed to come here. We were meant to attack, but why? I don't know. But we need to leave. Now. Set course for... He never finished the sentence, because that's when Dr. Jiwoo activated her special surprise. She had been a bioweapons specialist, yes. But she had also studied other forms of warfare. Chemical weapons, psychological weapons, and electromagnetic weapons, specifically EMP weapons. The Vrex Empire used a lot of electronic systems. Their ships were controlled by computers. Their weapons were guided by computers. Their life support ran on computers. It was efficient and it had served them well. Until now, Jiwoo pressed a button and buried transmitters all over the colony activated simultaneously. They sent out a massive electromagnetic pulse, carefully tuned to the frequency that Vrex technology operated on. It had taken Earth's intelligence services years to learn those frequencies. Many spies had died getting that information. but it had been worth it. The EMP washed over the Vrex fleet like an invisible wave. Systems began to fail. Lights flickered and died. Control panels went dark. Weapon systems shut down. The mighty battlecruisers, so powerful moments ago, became nothing more than floating metal boxes. 6 of the 12 ships were completely disabled. The other 6 suffered partial system failures. Emergency power kicked in, but it would take time to restore full functionality. Time they didn't have. "Now, Haywan," Jinho said calmly, "show them the big guns." All over the colony, what had looked like industrial equipment transformed. Factories opened up to reveal weapons platforms. Warehouses split apart to show missile batteries. Even the school building, empty of children now, revealed hidden weapons in its basement. But the most impressive transformation happened at the colony's power station. The entire building unfolded like a metal flower, and rising from its center was a railgun, not a small defensive railgun like the others. This was a siege weapon, the kind of gun designed to crack open fortified positions, or to destroy battle cruisers. Young Sik had moved to the railgun control station. He looked at the targeting computer, at the 6 disabled Vrex ships floating helplessly in orbit. "This feels unsporting," he muttered. "Shooting disabled ships." "They were going to exterminate us," Yenwu reminded him over the radio. "They were going to kill our children. They deserve no mercy." Young Sik nodded. "Fair point." Targeting main flagship, the railgun charged. The sound was like thunder rolling slowly across the sky. Energy built up. Magnetic fields aligned, and the projectile was accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. When it fired, there was no explosion. No dramatic flash. Just a solid rod of metal moving very, very fast. It hit Volk's flagship amidships. The kinetic energy was tremendous. The ship's armor, designed to withstand energy weapons and missiles, had never been designed for this. The projectile went through the ship like it wasn't there. The flagship broke in half. Atmosphere vented into space. Secondary explosions rippled through both pieces. Within seconds, the pride of the Vrex fleet was nothing but debris. Commander Volk had just enough time to understand what was happening before his bridge lost pressure. His last thought was a simple one. We should have listened. Young Sik didn't pause. He targeted the 2nd disabled ship, charged, fired. Another battlecruiser died, then the 3rd. And the 4th. The remaining Vrex ships, the ones with partial power, tried desperately to retreat. Their engines sputtered to life. They began to move away from the planet. "They're running," Miran observed. "Let them get to the edge of the gravity well," Jinho said. "Then hit them with the missiles." "That seems cruel," someone said. "They came here to commit genocide," Jinho replied flatly. "They get no sympathy from me." The fleeing Vrex ships reached the point where they could jump to hyperspace. Safety was seconds away. Escape was within reach. Then the long-range missiles caught up with them. These weren't the small tactical missiles that had destroyed the landing craft. These were strategic weapons. Each one carried a fusion warhead, the kind of weapon that humanity had promised never to use again after the Proxima War. But promises only counted when both sides followed the rules. The missiles detonated in a sequence of miniature suns. Fusion fire consumed the remaining battlecruisers. Their shields, weakened by the EMP, couldn't handle it. One by one, they vanished in nuclear fire. And then it was over. 12 battlecruisers had arrived. 12 battlecruisers were now debris. An entire Vrex fleet vanished in less than 7 minutes. In the command center, the timer hit 6 minutes and 47 seconds. Then stopped. Someone began to clap. Slowly at first, then others joined in. Soon the entire command center was applauding, not in celebration but in relief. It was over. They had survived. Jinho stood and faced his people. "Good work, everyone." "Excellent work. But we're not done yet." The clapping stopped. "What do you mean?" Miran asked. "They're all dead." "Yes," Jinho agreed. "But one escape pod got away. I made sure of it." Everyone stared at him. "You let them escape?" Yunwoo asked carefully. "Why?" Jinho smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "Because someone needs to tell the Vrex Empire what happened here. Someone needs to spread the word." Governor Taesung's voice came over the radio. "It's time to send our message to the galaxy. Time to remind everyone why they should leave Earth's colonies alone." In orbit, a single Vrex escape pod limped away from the debris field. Inside, 3 terrified survivors huddled together, watching their fleet burn. They had come to conquer a helpless colony. Instead, they had witnessed a massacre, and they would make sure everyone knew about it. The sun rose over New Busan the next morning, just like it always did. The sky was clear and blue, though smoke still rose from a few distant crash sites. The fields were undamaged. The houses stood intact. To someone who hadn't been here yesterday, it would look like nothing had happened. But something had definitely happened. Governor Tae-sung walked through the colony, inspecting the aftermath. Children were being released from the bunkers, running into their parents' arms. The elderly were returning to their homes. Life was resuming, but everyone moved a little differently now. They stood a little straighter, looked at each other with new understanding. They had been tested. They had survived. Dr. Ji-woo found Tae-sung at the edge of a crater where a Vrex landing craft had crashed. Recovery teams were already working, pulling out debris for analysis. She carried 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," she said, handing him one. "Thanks." He took a sip. "Casualty report?" 0 deaths. 3 minor injuries, all from people tripping during the evacuation. Mrs. Bong sprained her ankle. Mr. Kwan burned his hand on a hot control panel, and little Sumin scraped her knee running to the bunkers. Tae-sung nodded slowly. "We destroyed an entire fleet, and the worst injury was a scraped knee." "That's about right." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the recovery teams work. "Do you think they'll come back?" Ji-woo asked. "The Vrex? Eventually, maybe. But not soon, and not without a lot more ships." Tae-sung gestured at the crater. "We need to make sure everyone knows what happened here. Make sure the whole galaxy understands." "Jin-ho already handled that," Ji-woo said with a small smile. "You should see the message he's preparing." In the communications center, Commander Jin-ho was indeed preparing a message. But he wasn't working alone. Miran was with him along with several others. They had spent all night putting together what they called the package. "Ready?" Jin-ho asked. Miran nodded. "Recording systems are active. Broadcast will reach the Vrex Empire in about 3 days. The rest of the galaxy will get copies shortly after." Jin-ho activated the camera. He sat in a simple chair wearing his farming clothes. Behind him, visible through the window, people were working in the fields. Normal, peaceful, unthreatening. "This message is for the Vrex Empire," Jin-ho began. His voice was calm, conversational, like he was discussing the weather. "Yesterday you sent 12 battlecruisers and approximately 1,200 soldiers to attack our colony. You believed we were defenseless. You believed we were easy prey." He paused, letting that sink in. "You were wrong. In 6 minutes and 47 seconds, your entire fleet was destroyed. Every ship, every soldier, complete annihilation, and we suffered 0 casualties." He leaned forward slightly. "I want to be very clear about what happened here. This was not a military installation. This was not a fortress. This was a retirement colony. The people here are farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers. We grow food. We raise children. We live peaceful lives." Another pause. "But we are also all veterans of Earth's military. We fought in the Proxima War. We have seen combat. We know how to fight. And when you threatened our families, you reminded us of skills we had tried to forget." He gestured to the window behind him. "Every Earth colony is like this. We don't build helpless settlements. We build communities that can defend themselves. The person harvesting grain might be a former weapons specialist. The teacher in the school might be a former tactical officer. The doctor in the medical center might be a former intelligence analyst." Jin-ho's expression hardened. "You looked at us and saw weakness. You saw civilians. You saw easy victims. You didn't see the truth. Earth learned long ago that the galaxy is dangerous. We learned that peace must be backed by strength. So we prepare, we train, we build our colonies with defense in mind." He stood up and walked to the window. "Look at this colony. It looks normal, doesn't it? Peaceful, harmless, that's the point. We don't need to look dangerous. We just need to be dangerous when necessary." He turned back to the camera. "So here's my message to the Vrex Empire, and to anyone else who might consider attacking Earth's colonies. We are not easy targets. We are not defenseless. We are humans, and we have very long memories. We remember every threat. We prepare for every possibility. And we protect our own." His voice dropped lower, more serious. "You sent a fleet to kill us. We destroyed that fleet and went back to farming. Think about that. Really think about it. We ended your invasion before lunchtime, then had a normal afternoon. What does that tell you about us? He leaned close to the camera. Leave us alone. Leave all human colonies alone. 'Cause what happened here, this was just one colony. One small settlement on the edge of space. Imagine what would happen if you attacked a major world. Imagine what would happen if you made Earth itself angry. Jinho sat back down. You've been warned. Don't make us remind you again. The recording ended. Miran looked up from her console. That's going to make a lot of people nervous. Good, Jinho replied. Nervous people don't attack. That's the point. The message was attached to the escape pod's data. Along with the message were detailed scans of the battle, sensor logs, tactical data, everything the Vrex survivors had recorded. Jinho wanted the Vrex Empire to see exactly how outmatched they had been. 3 days later, the escape pod reached the nearest Vrex outpost. The 3 survivors, traumatized and exhausted, delivered their report, along with the data. And Jinho's message, the response was immediate. The Vrex Empire updated their databases. Human colonies were moved from soft targets to avoid at all costs. Military planners began reassessing every strategy that involved humans. The message spread beyond the Vrex Empire. Other species heard about what happened at New Busan. Some laughed it off as propaganda. Others took it seriously, but everyone remembered the story. The story of 12 battlecruisers that attacked a farming colony and lasted 7 minutes. Back on New Busan, life continued. Young Sik returned to his farm. His daughter Sumin, the one who had scraped her knee, helped him plant new seeds. She asked him about the bad aliens that had come. They're gone now, he told her gently. And they won't come back. Because you stopped them? Because we all stopped them. Together. Sumin thought about that. Are there more bad aliens out there? Young Sik looked up at the sky. The same sky that had been filled with explosions and fire just days ago. Now it was peaceful again. Maybe, he admitted. But if they come, we'll be ready. We're always ready. She seemed satisfied with that answer and went back to helping him plant. Engineer Haiwan was already working on improvements to the defense systems. She had a list of ideas, things that could be better, faster, stronger. Because that was what humans did. They learned. They adapted. They improved. Next time, she muttered to herself, they won't even make it into the atmosphere. Dr. Jiwoo reopened the medical center for normal operations. She treated a farmer's cold, set a broken finger, gave vaccinations to children. Normal doctor work. She was grateful for normal. But the weapons remained in the cabinet. Clean. Maintained. Ready. Just in case. Hyunwoo walked the streets, checking on people, making sure everyone was okay. Most were fine. A few had nightmares. Some couldn't stop talking about the battle. Others didn't want to talk about it at all. We're a community, he reminded them. We take care of each other. That's what makes us strong. And Governor Tae-sung stood in his office looking at the same peaceful view he had seen before the attack. The children playing. The farmers working. The quiet, normal life they had built. His desk computer chimed. A message from Earth, he opened it. It was from the Colonial Defense Ministry. Governor Tae-sung. We have received reports of the engagement at New Busan. Congratulations on your successful defense. Your tactics and preparedness are being studied and will be implemented across all frontier colonies. You have reminded the galaxy why Earth's colonies should not be attacked. Well done. Tae-sung smiled slightly and closed the message. Then he wrote his reply, thank you. But we were just doing what any human colony would do. We protected our home. We protected our families. We did what we had to do. And we'll do it again if necessary. That's what it means to be human. He sent the message and returned to watching the children play. That evening, the entire colony gathered for a memorial service, not for their own dead because there were none, but for the future, for peace, for hope that one day the galaxy would learn. Tae-sung addressed the crowd. We won a battle yesterday, he said, but we didn't start a war. We defended ourselves. We protected our children. We did what was necessary, nothing more. He looked around at his people, these farmers and teachers and doctors who had become warriors when needed. I hope we never have to fight again. I hope other species will leave us in peace. But if they don't, he paused. If they don't, we'll be ready. We'll always be ready. Because that's who we are. That's what Earth taught us. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and protect your own. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then someone started applauding. Others joined in. Soon everyone was clapping, not in celebration but in solidarity. In shared understanding, they were humans. They were colonists. They were survivors, and they would never be easy prey. Years later, when historians studied the period, they would mark the Battle of New Busan as a turning point.